everyone. Welcome to Risk Roundup. Identity assurance, identity and access management for specific access, for secure access to computers of all sizes and shapes under all kinds of different scenarios, which enables that the right individuals can access the right resources at the right times and for the right reasons is a very complex challenge. While passwords have become a part of everyday life and the use of biometrics is also on the rise, the debate remains whether the current form of human identity authentication is efficient and secure. There is a growing need to identity assurance and management solutions to be strong enough to accommodate the growing complexities of not only the organizations, but also their complex computing environments. So how to assure identity effectively? Do we need new ideas, new innovations, and new advances in technology that can bring us a promise of identity assurance? Perhaps. To discuss one such new idea, I'm delighted to welcome Hitoshi Kokumai to Risk Roundup. Mr. Hitoshi Kokumai is the president of Mnemonic Security Inc. and is based in Japan. Welcome, Mr. Hitoshi. I'm honored to have you on Risk Roundup.
Thank you very much, Jersey. And thank you very much for having me.
Wonderful.
I'm very pleased to be given the chance of talking about digital identity in cyberspace. I'm not in a position to talk much about the identity problem in the real world or in a physical world. I would like to focus on digital identity in cyberspace because the requirement is very different from the old days that we can get ourselves identified only physically. Now we live in the world where identity can be easily synthesized, and we have digital twins on the internet. And the need of digital identity, I don't need to emphasize it here because everybody knows it. What I would like to emphasize is that the digital identity in the cyberspace cannot be separated from our will or volition and our memory. It would be wrong to consider that our identity can be authenticated without asking our involvement, volitional involvement. So I am fiercely against the idea of the authentication without password. Password is absolutely necessary for authentication in democratic society where we should not be authenticated without having our volition confirmed. If we get authenticated without getting asked about our volition, we would see a dystopia like 1984. And having said that, we know that the password is a headache for every one of us. Everybody is hating, loathing the trouble of managing the passwords. But here, we should be careful. When we're talking about password, we mean text-only password. People are complaining about the burden of text-only password, and some people jump to the conclusion that password is a problem. No, the problem is a text password or text-only password. And we are advocating that password system can be and should be expanded to include non-text memory objects. One good example and one most practicable object is image, visual image, pictures. And by using pictures as a part of the password system, we can achieve a very practicable, hard to forget, hard to break, and panic-proof identity authentication measures. That's what I am doing with my friends.
That's wonderful. And first of all, thank you for clarifying that we are talking about the human identification and authentication in cyberspace, because we are not talking about, in the geospace. So thank you for the clarification. And the second point that you made about is that password needs to be there for the democratic society and for understanding the location and position. What exactly do you mean by position of individuals, and why do you think that passwords are essential for knowing the position of any individual in the cyberspace?
Sorry, I don't understand what you mean by position, because I didn't use that word.
Okay, maybe misunderstanding, but I thought you said that to understand the position of an individual, but that's fine. If we can move past that. So what you are proposing is that we need to focus on the memory. We need to focus
Okay.
on the,
Okay, and so the password, by password, the word of password is polysemantic, and it has different meanings depending on the context. And
yes.
so let me make it clear what is essential for digital identity is secret credential.
That
Secret
only
credential.
people would know.
Secret credential doesn't necessarily have to be text. Whatever we can remember privately can be secret credential, so long as it can be shared between us and the computer.
But then,
It could,
are we not introducing this risk? Are we not making the security risk even more, greater if we share the secrets that we have with the password, the company or whoever is
oh,
managing that?
I said the secret credentials must be shared between us and the computer, not necessarily me and other people.
But
The,
what
the,
is what
the secret credential, if it is properly encrypted or hashed, then other people cannot share it with me. That's where encryption contributes to our safety.
Yes, I hear you on that, and I wish that
So,
there was.
so
I wish there was a encryption that cannot be broken. And these days, you don't even need a, strong and I mean technology to break the encryption, the homomorphic encryption. Then can just look into any database and identify the patterns, understand what is in that, and there are AI can pretty much get anything from the computer once it's in the cyberspace. Anything is
uh,
accessible by
le-
the
uh,
AI.
if we can talk about the very extreme situation
Yes, yes,
that we don't have any effective encryption,
right.
then it's beyond our scope.
Yes, I hear.
We can talk about the safe digital identity on the assumption that we have an effective encryption somehow.
Yes,
So I don't think it's constructive to
yes,
talk about what would happen when we don't have any effective encryption. We may, in that station, we may need to abandon the life of abandon the digital life, cyber life altogether. We should destroy all the computers, all the networks, and
Right.
we need to live on the paper and the seeds and the
No,
physical objects alone. So
that's
we
not what we want.
so when we talk about password, text password, secret credentials, we are talking about on the firm assumption that we can rely on effective encryption some way or other.
What encryption do you prefer that would protect the identity and
What
all secret data?
for identity management,
Mhm.
the most important technology is hashing.
Yes.
Without hashing, digital identity is difficult to exist because everyone can share our secret credentials. Hashing can prevent it so long as hashing is effective.
Right, right, I understand.
So,
Now,
so
today, as we see, the passwords are commonly used during the login process that can control the access to any kind of protected operating systems or
yes,
computers or mobile phones or cable or TV or automated ATM machines at the banks and so many different places. So, how will these approach that you are proposing, the expanded password system, change the state of user account creation, authentication, and protection? What will need to change?
the overall picture will not be changed.
I see.
For we need a password for many applications. We will continue to rely on password. In other words, we will need to continue to rely on shared secret credentials for many years onwards. At the same time, we all hate the current text-only passwords because it's too hard to manage. It's virtually impossible for human being to handle dozens of reliable passwords.
Yes.
Everybody knows it. But at the same time, we know that we are complaining not about secret credentials. We are complaining about text-only password
Yes.
because so far we have only been given the chances to use or feed text-only password. Wherever you go, you have to feed text passwords. You are not allowed to feed any other passwords. So we need to separate the problem very clearly. We are not suffering from the problem of password. We are suffering from the problem of text-only password.
Yes. So you just, in addition to the text and all these different symbols that we have currently, you also want to incorporate another variable. Where,
Yes,
and how would that work? Who will incorporate that? So do you have a system that can automatically add all that is necessary to the current password systems, or we need
yes.
to create an entirely new system?
There are many ways to solve the problem of text passwords. And one way is to build something from scratch and display text passwords. It's possible. And another way is to produce a simple software to convert our memory of image, our image memory, into text. It's simple.
Do we do we have?
Imagine, yes, imagine you are watching a matrix of images.
Yes.
Say, the matrix is made of, say, 36 images, 6 by 6, 36 images. And on that matrix, you have 5 known images. Say the pictures of a doll your daughter loved to play 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and a bicycle, a sort of bicycle that I used to ride when I was a boy,
Got it. Got it.
or uh, a picture of a famous mountain taken by myself. Those images we can pick up quite easily. And if those pictures are presented by a long data identifier, say if one image is presented by, say, 100 byte data, when we pick up 5 pictures, we'll have 500 bytes identified data. That data, when hashed, it will be a very strong authentication data or secret credential shared between me and the machine, but a third person would find it impossible to get it back to the image that I selected.
So what you're talking about is personalization of the password. We decide, what we want on the password, whether it's only images or whether we want our own names or whatever we decide, it will be our own personal passwords and it will be between us and the computers. But the computer is basically computational intelligence. I mean, AI is we discussed before. You think that in scenario,
AI can imitate what we humans do very efficiently. And at the end of the day, AI will be able to decipher our hashed value. But we would be all right if we are dead when the computer AI succeeds in deciphering our secret credential.
Yeah, no, I hear that.
It's not the problem of whether they can or they cannot. The problem is if they can do it quickly or they can do it after we are dead.
Yeah, you're right. I hear you on that. But the point that you made that we need to have an ability to personalize passwords, I like that. I think it's a really good, suggestion, and we should be able to put in password whatever we want to. It can be images, it can be any object, of a family, or any object that we like, or any vacation spot. We can decide what we want to have on that. So personalization of password is a really good idea. But now you know that we use password in so many different places. And as we just discussed a few minutes before, that it can be for the ATMs, it can be for social media, it can be for downloading applications, it can be for anything. So if we are using all these passwords in a lot of different places, right now that many people just use the same password everywhere, which is not a good idea, but they still do that because
Yes,
it's much easier. So what you are proposing is, will on this expanded password or personalized password protection, do you see a need to have a different passwords for different personalized password for all different applications, or people will be able to use the same for everything? For simplicity, right?
Our memory of text is very limited, and text and numbers are vulnerable to the cognitive the phenomenon called interference of memory. So we cannot keep remembering more than several random passwords, and so we have to reuse the same passwords across many accounts. But when coming to pictures, we can allocate all the different unique matrix of images to many different accounts. This means that the account A, I can use the pictures, a unique set of pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And for account B, I can use another different matrix of pictures.
Yes.
That way, our storage of image memories are huge over, say, acquired over decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, 5 decades life. It's impossible to exhaust our image memories
Yes.
for say dozens of accounts. I don't claim that we can manage thousands or tens of thousands different accounts. I'm not sure.
Yes.
But when we talk about a dozen or 2 dozens or 3 dozens of different accounts, our brain has sufficient volume of pictures
Yes.
to use.
Yes, very true. No, that's a good point.
And yes, and one of the biggest problem of text passwords is that there are many bright people who can remember very strong passwords and several of very strong passwords, but few of them are able to remember the relation between the accounts and the corresponding passwords.
Yes.
You can say, when I was young, my memory was a bit better than now, and I could remember several high entropy passwords.
Right.
But I couldn't remember the relation between the account and the corresponding password. This password, I remember this long password, but I don't recall this password for which account.
Yeah.
So I had to rely on that memo.
Yes.
Even though I could remember a long password, I had to rely on writing it down because I couldn't remember the relation between the account and the corresponding passwords.
Right.
And this is, I assume, this is the biggest cognitive problem we have when handling text passwords.
Yes. No, yes, that
and
is
and we can be relieved from this burden if we use
images.
our visual memories, because pictures reminds us
Yes.
this matrix is for that particular password, because when access to an account, the account presents my pictures.
Yes.
From which I will select my picture password.
Sure. I mean, think about it. If we are talking about, let's say, a bank account, then we can have an image of that bank. We can have the image of the, locations near the bank or the street. So all those things, like you say, it's very easy to remember because we know the physical location of the bank. We know the, physical location of the street or, anything that is next door. So those things are very easy for us to remember. So you are right that rather than those long passwords, this would be much easier way to have our memory, store all that information. And it would be very easy to access that when we need it. But as you know that, all these organizations, I mean, we are also talking about access to enterprise passwords, so they all have different policies and they set different requirements for the composition and usage of passwords. And there are also different authentication frameworks that define requirements for user authentication for many different kinds of digital services, including, the requirements for the passwords that we are talking about. So some things will need to change. What do you think will need to change? In the a little bit earlier, you said that nothing will need to change. That
Yeah,
we can create a simple,
yes,
software that would be
the
able to do all that. So that software will be on the user side or the enterprises side, where who will need to use the software?
the there are multiple ways to tackle the problem.
Okay.
And one simple solution is enterprises will need to uh, accept very long passwords. In some cases, uh, some some companies don't accept very long password. They will give limit to the length. It should be removed, or the ceiling could be made very high. Then at our end, at the user's end, when we have this software, we call the expanded password system. It will have the function of converting the image into text. When you pick up 4 or 5 pictures, the software turns our image memory into a very long text passwords. Then that text password would be sent to the company. The
Okay.
company get the hashed value from the long text and compared it with the hashed values they store. In
Yeah.
that case, the companies don't need to do anything but to remove the limit to the text passwords. If they already accept long enough passwords, they don't have to do anything. They can keep using the existing text password system in order to accept the merit of expanded password system, just by encouraging the employees or consumers to use the image to text converter software made of expanded password system. And it's easy because what we need to do is just to convert the images into text, and converting image to text can be done by many ways by quick computers very easily. If one picture is represented by, say, 10 characters, for instance, if you pick up 4 pictures, then 40 characters will be sent out to the company.
No,
And
yes.
and making the software for this job, writing a software to do this job, we already did 15 years ago, could be easily done. We already proved that it was easy.
Oh, you have already developed this software?
Yes, and it was used for digital shoppers up to 140,000 people successfully online. And some software were even used for very demanding application and very demanding environment by a military force. So it's already we already proved that this is not the concept. We already turned this concept into actual product for both military use and the commercial use.
Great, wonderful. That congratulations for that. That is a good, development, and it would certainly, help the authentication of individuals depending, on what different variables the organization wants to make sure how secured and how complex they want the personalized password, system. I would call it personalized. You can call it expanded system, but that is a good development. So based on all the different testing that has happened with the army and on the commercial sides, do you see any specific issues that needs to be considered when any user decides to choose, what images to use or what kind of different objects to use? Is there anything that they need to be concerned about? Or, I mean, because see, images can be in black and white, in colored, of different, strength, different, clarity, and different resolution. So is there anything that they need to be careful about when they choose any images?
I'm glad that you asked $1 million question. Picking up the pictures associated with our good memory, happy memory, we can look at and find them even when we are in panic or we are under a very strong pressure. That's one of the reasons that military people were interested in this solution. It's a panic proof. And I believe that the democratic societies must be able to provide the citizens with identity authentication measures that is practicable even in emergencies like disaster recovery, earthquake, flooding, civil conflicts, or the fire. We may face emergency at any time, and when we live pre-digital society, our identity could be confirmed by neighbors or families and neighbors. But in this area, we need to be authenticated digitally in order to get the services provided digitally. We have to obtain money from ATM, from machine, or we need to pay electronically to survive, and we need to get ourselves identified electronically in order to accepted by hospitals. We live in those days. We live in this environment. This means we need to have a means to get us authenticated, even when we are trapped in the disaster. Even when we are naked, so even when we are naked, even when we are injured, even when we are panicked. Here, we can contribute a lot, because hard to remember password will not come out when we are in panic. We know from my experience. I can recall the long password when we are calm, but when we're under stress, long password wouldn't come
Yeah.
up.
No, I hear
And
you.
when we are in disaster, we should not be supposed to carry certificates, physical tokens. We should assume that we don't have them.
So I think that's what you meant when you, in the first discussion point, you said that under any position. So that's what probably you were trying to say, that
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
we are under stress or if we
Yes,
are in certain situation, then we won't remember. So now
yes.
I can get
So,
the direction of what you were trying to say. So that's a very good point, and we
so
need to consider that.
yes. So, uh, I believe that every government must be able to provide the citizens with something like this,
Yes.
the authentication measure that can be practiced even when citizens are trapped in disaster, even when they are naked, even they are injured, even they are panicked. And in that sense, our approach uh, could help a lot.
Yes, absolutely. I hear your point on that. But there is one technical question I was just thinking about as you were explaining. The current password systems that uses the numbers and letters and some of the symbols, that the size of that, the data file size would be very small. Now, when we use the images the first time, and when the images are uh, modified into whatever version of numbers, or however you modify, however your software modifies, does the data file size increase significantly, or it remains still the same?
It was a big problem when we first thought of this approach 20 years ago. 20 years ago, memory was expensive
Yes.
and the communications was slow. But nowadays, a small smartphone is 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 times more powerful than 20 years ago.
Yes.
And nobody has to worry about the size of the memory because a small shot of picture is already larger than the size of the data we are talking about.
Yes, yes, no, I hear you on that. But still, it is still, if you are talking about large organizations where they have thousands, I mean, hundreds of thousands of employees, or if a country, I mean, how many billions of people are there?
It's it's fraction fraction of their capacity.
Okay, good.
When we first implemented this system 15 years ago in Japan for up to 1 million consumers. At the end of the day, the user was 140,000, but the system was built, designed for 1 million users 15 years ago.
Yes, yes,
And yet, the data to handle 1 million users was a fraction of the capacity of the system. Nowadays, it's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction.
sure, sure. I hear you on that. So, how are you planning to move forward on this? You have already tested this software. How are you planning to commercialize it, on a broader scale, so that every country can benefit from this?
We made a small success in Japan, but that success uh, is limited because the program was written in Japanese for Japanese market. So we need to rewrite the software in English for the global market.
I hear
We
you.
have yet to do it.
Okay.
And we are now thinking of setting up the global headquarters in the near future to scale up for the global population. Our objective is not to make money, but to see all the global population be, re- be relieved from the burden of the text-only password and uh, make the life difficult for criminals.
Yes. Now, coming to that point, and I'm glad that you are thinking of making it in English version, so everybody can use it, across nations. But if it, I mean, that's a good, development, and I'm glad to hear that you are moving forward in that direction. But if we talk about the passwords, and you just talked about the hackers and security, so it reminds me that passwords are usually transmitted unprotected, and you are thinking of transmitting that information encrypted, which is a really good sign that you are thinking of security. But sending that on all different pages or social media, some of them are secure, some of them are not secure, and some places use a lot of applications are secured, some of them are not secure. So how would that encryption process work if the accounts are tied to sites that are not protected or that are not secured? And what would it mean for the hackers who are trying to, hack? They're just waiting for those sites and the access points and the data, that is being transmitted there. So even if you have your data encrypted, when it, goes to that site, but if that site is not secured, then how would that work?
Jeffrey, I understand that everybody in this business uses encryption. We are just one of them. Encryption is available for everybody, for both good guys and bad guys.
Yes.
And so encryption is neutral, already neutral to everybody. And the bad guys are using it, the good guys are using it.
Everybody.
And we need encryption as other people need encryption. And the key is not the encryption, because everybody can use encryption. The key is the how to incorporate our memory into the world of technology. The world of the technology is neutral to everybody. We are unique only in the way of incorporating our memory into this technological picture. And
I hear you on that. I hear you on that.
And by bringing in our will, volition, and the memory, we can make the system safe to the people, not to the system. So many people are obsessed with the idea of protecting the systems. We are focusing more on protecting the people.
I think you have the right approach. I
Yes.
always agree to that. That is the heart of security. If you are able to protect the individual, secure the individual identity, not only of humans but also for machines in the coming years, then solve the major security problem. I think you are on the right path. But I have one question, thinking about the security, because many enterprises, they use their users, their individuals that are working on some very important program or very important system. They all use the same password because of the technical reasons, because they all need to continue that and they cannot log out and log back in for otherwise the system would go down. So under those scenarios, they cannot if you have a system where everybody use their personal memory based images, then they would not be able to use that. Then we would need to create some sort of system where they can use images that is centered around the system, so everybody can remember that. Because then we cannot have a system or of images which are personal to that individual. So there would need to be a little bit different approach if you're talking about certain other systems.
Uh,
Do you understand my point I'm trying to say?
Sorry, I had some difficulty.
Let me explain you. For example, in a bank, a program runs throughout the day, 24/7, and the users of the program that are working there, on the back end, they are different people. They cannot, come and log out of the system, and then someone else has to log back in. So the system needs to continue. There cannot be a way that you can stop the system to log in, log out. So for those kind of systems, there will need to be a little bit different approach than
ah,
having. You understand my point?
yeah, yes. Okay. Those banks don't do anything particular. They can keep using it while employees, consumers can make the password stronger by making use of our approach. So, as I said earlier, we can provide the converter program. The converter program, the job of it is just one job, converting the image memory into text passwords. Say, converting our image memory into a very, very long password.
Yes.
And it's just writing a software. There is no hardware. There is no costly items. Just by providing the plug-in software module into users' devices or somewhere on the website, all the citizens, all the employees, everybody will be able to send out very, very long password to the existing text password systems.
Yes.
So banks, governments, all the companies or everybody keeps using existing text password system without stopping or without rebuilding or without replacing, without doing anything. They just continue to use the current existing text passwords. At the same time, we will be able to make the entire password system safer by just supplying small software to everybody.
So your system just needs to integrate with the current system. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. So where do you see problems, that may emerge as you move forward, as you see that your system starts getting integrated into all different, systems across nations? Do you anticipate any problems, technical, non-technical problems, or what are your thoughts on as commercialization or your expansion?
I don't see any say prohibitive obstacle for this project. If people realize that the current text password headache would go away just by incorporating our solution, then we would see it. Currently, we are not known. Our solution is not known. It's the problem. If our solution becomes known to the people, then I'm optimistic they will use it.
I
They will use it because it wouldn't cost much. The society as a whole don't have to do anything. They just continue to use the current text password system.
Yes.
It costs nothing to them. It costs a bit to write the software, to convert the image memory to text. So the social cost to solve this problem as a whole is very tiny as compared with the benefit
Yes.
that the society as a whole can gain.
Yes,
And
I hear you on that. And we do need systems like that. So, what would you like to tell our global viewers and listeners after listening to this Risk Roundup discussion, if they get interested in contacting you, in knowing more about your software and system, where could they reach you?
then could you please at the end of the video show my LinkedIn address and the Twitter account address?
Okay. Okay, definitely. I'll be happy to do that. In the article that we post, we'll be happy to incorporate your contact details. Do you have a website that they could, look at to get more information?
Yes.
Okay.
So yes. So I will be writing all the contact details later.
Okay, wonderful. You can send it to me and I'll be happy to incorporate.
Yes, certainly.
Wonderful. So, is there anything else you would like to tell our global viewers and listeners about your system?
Then I would like them to have a quick look at the video that we provide on the website.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you so much, Hitoshi, for participating in Risk Roundup today. And especially what you told me that your approach is human-centric and focusing on strengthening the identity authentication of humans. I was really happy to hear about that because that is the need of the time, that we secure human identity authentication. And hopefully in the coming years, we have a similar approach for machine authentication as well, rather than focusing on the other systems and all different kinds of approaches, because it is the human identity that is at the center of all these, chaos and crisis that is happening, and because of the security vulnerability. So we appreciate your thoughtful insight on this new approach that you have for the expanded password protection, and our global viewers and listeners would benefit tremendously from the information you shared today about your project, your system that you are developing, the software that you are trying to develop in English, so that everybody across nations can benefit from that. And based on this Risk Roundup discussion, I think this will be of a great service to everyone. So we thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. So, Risk Roundup, a global initiative launched by Risk Group, is a security risk reporting for risk emerging from existing and emerging technologies, technology convergence, and transformation happening across cyberspace, aquaspace, geospace, and space. We at Risk Group believe that risk management, security, and peace, they walk together hand in hand. Though security is related to management of threats and peace to the management of conflict, risk management is related to management of security vulnerabilities as well as management of conflict. And it is not possible to conceive any one of the three without the existence of the other two. All three concepts feed into each other. We believe that the security we build for ourselves is precarious and uncertain until it is secure for everyone across nations. Tradition becomes our security. So, if you build a culture of managing risk effectively, it will lead us to security, and security will lead us to peace. Let's manage the existing and emerging risks together. For more information on the Risk Roundups, to watch the Risk Roundup videos, or listen to the Risk Roundup podcast, please go to riskgroupllc.com and do not forget to subscribe and share. Until next time, I'm Jayashree, host of Risk Roundup, signing off. See you next time. Thank you.